Stand up.
Labor to earn. We need to stop making issues out of black and white. Let's concentrate on right and wrong.
And now, our voices today.
Why are we led by our pride?
Hello, welcome to the program. This is Our Voices Today on 95.9 FM WOVU, Our Voices United, Burton Bell Card Community Radio. I am TC Lewis. You are your wonderful self. I hope that you have had a chance to drink some clean, fresh, and alive water today. I've been checking the water on my new friend Glenn, the piece of plant that I acquired from a friend, and waiting on Glenn to produce some roots so that I could plant him in the soil, which was the guidance that I was given. So I'm waiting. I'm talking to Glenn. I'm asking Glenn, how's your day been? You know, I'm rooting for you, Glenn. And so just making sure he gets some sun. Hopefully this works out. So clean, fresh, alive water. I hope that you have had the opportunity to eat some tasty, nutritious, high vibrational food. I'm still teetering and tottering. One foot in, one foot out, moment by moment. But we press on, and I hope you have had good rest the night before today, so that we are thinking positive and productive thoughts as we move through these moments, which is the third Thursday of the month, which is our appointed time to have a chat with our friends from the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. Legal Aid, you can get in touch with Legal Aid at a number 888-817-3777. Y'all have a lot of numbers, but I believe the main number is 888-817-3777. That is their intake line. You can also go online to lasclev.org to fill out the intake form and receive a call back. There's also a tab, something you can click where you can find the schedule for the free FREE legal advice clinics, the brief advice clinics. Let's see, I'm holding my schedule here in my hand, and I believe there was one this week in Ashtabula, but the next one coming up is this Saturday from 9:30 to 10:30 at Fatima Family Center, 6600 Lexington Avenue in Cleveland. So Saturday, May 20th from 9:30 to 10:30 at the Fatima Family Center. Legal Aid Society of Cleveland will be available to help you with your civil legal matters if you are income qualified, and even if not, I'm sure they'll point you in the right direction. So let's just get into it. We are talking today, about your rights, our rights, life in the law. Our monthly conversation with the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. Here today with us is our old friend Isabel Izzy McLean. Let's see. Let me turn your mic on, Izzy. Hi.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. It's great to be back.
Yes, great to have you back in Studio 3. Izzy McLean, Administrative Assistant for the Intake and Volunteer Lawyers Program. And yes, you were here with us in March. So welcome back.
Thank you.
Great to have you. And we have a new friend. new to the WOVU Life in the Law family. Mr. Jerry Meter, he is a legal aid volunteer who has extensive experience working on record sealing and expungement. We're talking about the changes in Ohio's expungement law, recent changes, and also just getting to know expungement, record sealing, the ins and outs, the do's, the don'ts, the cans and the shoulds, and everything in between. Welcome to the program, Jerry Meter.
Thank you, TC. It's a privilege to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you. And so, let's just get into it. Jerry, you wanted us to really unpack what these changes to Ohio's expungement law are. What was it before? What is it now? And how does this affect us?
Well, thank you, TC. I'm very excited to tell you that there are two huge changes to the Ohio law that took effect just last month, back in April 2023. And there are two big changes. The first big change is that it used to be that in order to seal a record, an individual had to first prove that they were individually eligible to get their record sealed. Now, some people weren't eligible because they had too many records, the wrong kinds of records, or some combination of that, and then they were just ineligible and they couldn't seal anything. And they never even got to the second question, which was, what about the records themselves? Are those records individually sealable at the time? So now everybody is eligible to get their records sealed or expunged. Everybody. How do I know? Well, because there's no longer a requirement to prove that you are individually eligible. So even if you have dozens of records, you are eligible to get those records sealed if those records are eligible themselves to be sealed. It's a big change.
Okay, so what is record sealing? Because that's not what we hear when we're talking about this concept. We hear the word expungement.
Right.
So what's the difference between the two?
Well, I want to make sure that we don't overemphasize that difference, because whether you can get your records sealed or whether you can get them expunged, it's going to be to your advantage either way. So don't think that just because you can't get a record expunged that you shouldn't bother getting it sealed. So the difference is just this. So before April of this year, you could only get your record sealed, and that means you could only get the record put under seal at the courthouse, but the record is still there.
Right.
And certain people can still see that record. Now, not many people can. Now, the government can see it, of course. The courts can see it. It's their record, right? Courts can see it, and certain employers could also look behind that seal. Employers that deal mostly with children or with the elderly or with the disabled, they could also, what they call vulnerable populations, they could look behind that seal. The difference with expungement is that expungement is where the record is completely erased, it's destroyed, it's obliterated, and it no longer exists in any government database. It's like it never happened. Now, that's better, but they're both good options depending on what you're able to do with your record.
What if I murdered somebody? Can I get that?
Well, remember I said there were exceptions?
Okay,
that gets into the exceptions. Good segue. So even though everyone's eligible to get their records sealed, some records cannot be. So there are 5 broad categories of records that cannot be sealed. Now, lots of records can be sealed. I don't want you to think this occupies the field. There's lots of records that can be sealed, but what you can't get sealed are kind of what you're indicating. The first category are those offenses that are the most serious felonies, the first and second degree felonies. So if it's murder, it's rape, it's arson, it's robbery, those kinds of things, if they're first and second degree felonies, you're not going to get those sealed or expunged. And some third degree felonies, the middling felony. There are 5 degrees of felony, by the way. So third degree felonies, if you have too many of those, we're going to count those. So maybe you can get the third degrees expunged or sealed, maybe not. That's the first category, the serious felonies. In addition, you can't get sealed certain specific offenses. One of those is domestic violence crimes of any kind, a felony or misdemeanor, or if you have a conviction for violating a protection order.
Okay.
If you violate a protection order, the courts, they don't like that. They're not going to let you seal or expunge that. That's the second category, those two specific crimes. The third category involves crimes that involve children under the age of 13 years. Now, that can come in a variety of different offenses. Mostly it's child endangerment. If it's a child who's under 13, sometimes if someone's pulled over, for example, they get a DUI and they have a young child in the car, they may be charged with that. And that's just not going to be sealed or expunged. Now, the fourth category are people who commit offenses and have convictions for offenses while they are sex offenses, while they are on the sex offense registry.
Okay.
So if you're required to report as a sex offender and you commit a sexual offense, that's not going to be sealable or expungible. And the last category is sort of an odd category because, see, these laws that govern sealing and expunging mostly apply to the criminal code, mostly. They don't apply to the traffic code or the motor vehicle code.
Okay.
So if you have a speeding ticket or a reckless driving, and the big one is you have a driving under the influence, operating a vehicle while impaired, an OVI or a DUI, those unfortunately cannot be sealed or expunged.
Okay.
But that still leaves a lot of offenses.
Right. Plenty of more rules to break. But those are the big ones.
Those are the big ones.
That people wish that they can make go away.
Well,
especially DUIs.
Well, yeah, those unfortunately you can't. But again, it still leaves a huge universe of offenses that people can seal. I can talk a
What
little.
are some of those? Yeah, tell us. What are some of the common ones that we may not think? Maybe I have to live with this forever.
Okay. So I've been doing this for like 5 or 6 years, and in my experience, I've seen cases fall in pretty much 3 broad categories. The first category of offenses I see are people with a record of drug offenses.
Okay.
People get wrapped up, trapped in drugs, either because they are selling them or using them. Drug possession, even felony trafficking offenses, if they're 4th or 5th degree felonies, those can be sealed or expunged.
Okay.
So I see that drug paraphernalia charges, all those offenses. Doesn't matter how many you have. We'll look at those charges. You may be able to get all those sealed.
Wow.
And related offenses. Sometimes people involved in drugs have other offenses as well, some theft offenses, whatever it is. But those are all generally sealable or expungible. Second category are people with theft offenses.
Okay.
People get into this pattern or habit of, for whatever reason, they do a little shoplifting and then they get in trouble with the law, and then they come out and they try to get a job and they can't get a job because they have this record, and they return to that bad practice.
Yeah, I didn't have any money, no food stamps, no WIC. I needed formula for my baby.
Yeah.
It could be something like that.
So all of those can be sealed or expunged, and it doesn't matter if they're 4th or 5th degree felonies. Grand theft even can be sealed or expunged.
Okay.
And then that third category, that's kind of the catch-all, the cats and dogs. So if you have records of things like loud music in a car, or you have disorderly conduct, whatever that means, you have obstructing official business, resisting arrest.
Yeah, stuff you get when maybe you didn't really do much, but they got to charge you with something.
Yeah, sometimes some of these are called crimes of poverty sometimes, but it can be like you have a dog off the leash, or you got on a bus without a ticket. It's just amazing the variety of sort of cats and dog offenses that are all expungible.
Wow. Well, okay, so
I actually have a question. And
Go
this
ahead,
is
Izzy.
one. So this is one I get from our clients a lot. What about evictions?
That's a great question, and there's a whole section of legal aid dedicated to landlord-tenant issues. But see, evictions aren't a crime. So it's not a criminal offense to be evicted. Now, if there's a trespassing charge involved somewhere in there, that's one of those expungible offenses. Again, there are some requirements still we have to follow because, it's the law. There's got to be a few extra requirements, but all these things are expungible, yes.
Okay. How does, legal aid deals with civil matters? And you just said that expungement only deals with really criminal offenses. So how does legal aid help people in this arena?
Well, that's a great question. I get that a lot. So legal aid doesn't deal with issues affecting actual guilt or innocence or sentencing.
Okay.
That's in the province of the public defender.
Okay.
All right. So, but see, what we're doing here doesn't have to do with whether you're guilty or not. You're coming to us with a conviction record or a record of a dismissal. We can talk about that too. You have those records, and all we're doing is doing the administrative task through the courts of having those records administratively sealed or expunged. It's not determining guilt or innocence.
Okay. Gotcha.
Legal aid also really looks at this as an opportunity to expand your civil rights. So, maybe you get your record sealed and that allows you to get a job that is expanding your life here. And that's something that legal aid is, it betters our community. Maybe then you're able to get stable housing, and that's wonderful. So it's really looking at it as this is a civil process, an administrative process that we can complete that may allow you to live a fuller life. And that is absolutely part of legal aid's mission and core values is to, if we can complete this administrative process, and that means that you can go and be a brighter light in our community, then we're all about it.
Wow, yeah, that is a great point, and I'm so glad that you illuminated that because it is about being able to clear these records out that create barriers. And also, even if you are doing well, you might not want that. It could be a vanity thing too. But more importantly, getting rid of those barriers and opening up the opportunity and access for those where these sometimes very minor incidences that lead to something being placed on your criminal record, you're getting a charge. Can hamper progress in life. So are we talking about convictions, charges, arrests? Is it anything, or is it just maybe like the guilty charge?
So what we're talking about here, we're talking about court records.
Okay.
We're really talking about things that are going to show up on a background check, and that's mostly going to be the court records. Now, different police departments have different procedures for sealing or expunging police records. We don't generally deal with that because those aren't often reported.
Okay.
If those are an issue, you can contact legal aid and see if we can help you with those. But again, what really affects you is going to be those convictions when you're applying for that. And here's the thing, these conviction records are like anchors to your life, and people with records, they understand this. You apply for a job and they do a records check, and suddenly the job you might otherwise be entitled to, you can't get because of that stupid charge, that conviction you had 5 years ago. Or you apply to rent an apartment, and the landlord does a record check, and they say, nope, you've had this silly conviction 3 years ago, and they're not going to rent to you. So you can't even find a place to live that you might otherwise want to live in, a safe place. So it's the convictions we're focusing on because those are the ones that are going to be the biggest hamper to those activities, getting that job, getting that place to live. But it goes beyond that. You can actually, if you have a record of a case that was dismissed, or where you went to trial and you were found not guilty, or it was called, they say, nollied, where the prosecutor drops the charge, or even a felony case where a grand jury returns a no bill, which means they don't find an indictment. It's basically a dismissal in the felony arena. Those we can get sealed. Oddly, you can't expunge those, and I think the Ohio legislature had in mind to provide expungement for the convictions only. But still, you can get those sealed if you think those are going to affect you. And as a practical matter, TC, what we do is if someone comes to us for help with sealing or expunging, and we do a review of the records, if you're going to go into court anyway and get your convictions expunged, we're going to prepare the documents to seal your non-convictions as well. I mean, why not? You're there,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So,
wow. All in one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I should hasten to add before we get too far away from it that there are still some other requirements that apply to the expunging or sealing these records.
Okay.
And they include waiting periods primarily.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't, for example, you can't go into courts and have a judge slam the gavel down and say you're convicted, and then the next day come back and seal that record.
Okay.
Two things have to happen before you can apply to seal or expunge a conviction record. The first is you have to have the sentence completed. You have to pay the fine. You have to serve the time, if there's any time to be served. And you have to fulfill your probation, or community control, it's sometimes called. So that can take sometimes a year, 2, 3 years, depending on how long your probation was scheduled for. That probation, that fine, everything has to be done. And then you have to wait an additional period of time. For misdemeanors, it's generally a year, unless it's a minor misdemeanor, it's 6 months. So there's some time you have to wait. Now, for felonies, the same rules apply as far as finishing your probation and fines and time served. But the waiting periods are much longer. They can be 11 to 13 years to get those records expunged. Now, if you can't wait that long, you can still, in most cases, get those eligible felonies sealed.
Right.
Even though you have to wait 11 or 13 years to get them expunged, you may still be able to get them sealed a year after everything's done with the penalty. Or in third-degree felonies, it's a little longer. But there are options with felonies. With misdemeanors, you're almost always going to try to get a conviction expunged because the rules are the same. For expunging a misdemeanor. For felonies, it's a little bit different. Got to look at those harders, but there are options.
Wow, you have dropped a lot on us, Jerry Mead. Jerry is here with us, representing Legal Aid. You are a volunteer. You have to tell us what is your background, and you're very eloquent in giving us this information.
It's kind of you to say that. I was fortunate enough to be born in Cleveland, Ohio. I grew up on Archwood Avenue. People know where that is. Moved to Brook Park with my family. When I was 18, I enlisted. Kind of ran away from home. I enlisted in the United States Air Force. I did a career in the Air Force where I got my degree from Bowling Green and then a law degree from Colorado and became a judge advocate in the Air Force. I was a JAG officer.
Like the TV show.
Like the TV show, except I never jumped out of helicopters. And after that, I was in a federal civil service, and then I retired from that. And after being away for 40 years, I came back because my mom was ailing. And I'm thrilled to be back at the Cleveland area. It's my home. It's where my roots are.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being here with us today, Jerry Meader, along with Izzy McLean. Jerry's a volunteer, and Izzy is an administrative assistant with Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. If you have any questions or you want to find out how Legal Aid can help you by way of expungement or sealing your record, or any other fundamental need that you may be challenged with, whether it be housing, stuff with your kids at the school, immigration, employer stuff, wage theft. Those are the fancy ones, but also eviction and, whatever else you can think of that doesn't involve a crime. Get in touch with Legal Aid. Call their intake line at 888 817-3777. That's 888-817-3777. You can also call 211, United Way's 211 first call for help, and they will direct you to legal aid. You can go to their website at lasclev.org, lasclev.org. And remember the next brief advice clinic at the Fatima Family Center, Saturday, May 20th, this Saturday, 9:30 to 10:30 a.m., 6600 Lexington Avenue. This is Our Voices Today. Conversations about your rights, life, and the law with Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. It's the third Thursday. I'm TC Lewis. We'll be right back.
Don't ever quit just 'cause the rich get richer and the poor don't get. Excuse me, but I get so mad. Where could we have been? What could we have had? Yeah, it's time to lose those shackles and break those chains.
For every
Do you have basic questions related to employment, unemployment, or student loans? Call Legal Aid's Economic Justice Information Line at 216-861-5899. Leave a short message with your question, and a Legal Aid representative will return your call. That's 216-861-5899.
This message is brought to you by the Legal Aid Society and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Belcar community radio station.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Start now at tri-c.edu. This message was brought to you by WOVU 95.9 FM at Burton Bear Car Community Radio Station.
In the car, on your phone, when you leave home, you're never alone. Download the 95.9 FM WOVU mobile app for your Apple or Android mobile device.
It's time to make the short story longer.
Welcome back to the program. This is Our Voices Today on 95.9 FM WOVU, Our Voices United. It's the third Thursday of the month. Legal Aid Society is here with us, our friends, giving us the scoop, the ones, the twos, the ins and the outs of our rights in various areas of life, handling civil matters, administrative matters, and such. If you have an issue that falls into that realm, no matter what part of your life it has to do with, that school thing, people may not realize that legal aid can help you with if you're having challenges in your kids' school, when it comes to like discipline, what is that word? Expelled, getting expulsion and suspension, things like that. All right, so the number 888-817-3777, or you can go to their website and fill out the intake form, lasclev.org, lasclev.org. Jerry Meter is here with us, a legal aid volunteer who is highly experienced with record sealing and expungement, and he spent time in the mountains, so he's got a clear head, and he's given us very clear information about the things that qualify to be sealed or expunged, those criminal convictions on your criminal record. The laws have changed recently. Ohio's expungement law. All people are now eligible for record sealing, and then expungement, it just depends.
Well, expungement is the second new thing. The first
Okay.
one is that there's no individual eligibility. Everyone's eligible. And secondly, now, unlike previously, we can actually expunge, completely erase criminal conviction records.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. So what is the process for this, for getting your record sealed and or expunged? How does legal aid help with that, and what do we do?
So, like most things, it starts with calling that 888 number that TC has been shouting out. So that's our intake line. When you call our intake line or fill out the online application, you'll speak with one of our lovely intake folks. They'll take you through our eligibility. So, like with all legal assistance from legal aid, you do still have to qualify for our services. If you're a listener of the show, I'm sure you've heard us talk about it lots before. So they'll take you through an interview. You'll tell them, I'm looking to get my record sealed. I have some convictions that, I'm ready to move away from. I want to live life without that anchor that Jerry talked about. And if you're eligible, they'll say, great, you're eligible. And what we do is we do a virtual clinic model. So once you're eligible, you'll return all of the records to us. So there are dispositions on all the court websites that say, here's what happened with my case, here's what happened with my theft charge, and you submit all of that to us, and then we give it to Jerry here. And Jerry spends some time looking over all of the records that you may have and looking through them and kind of going through in his head that eligibility that we talked through. Is this eligible? Can we seal it? Can we expunge it? Has the waiting time? Have you met all those requirements? Is it eligible? And once we determine, yes, great, it is, Jerry also does the incredible work of drafting all of the documents that you need to file with the court.
Okay.
So the court requires you to actually, provide that paperwork that, I'm not an attorney. I could not draft it. It's confusing. So Jerry takes that part out for us, and then he sends it over to me. And then once we have all of the paperwork from Jerry, I would be giving you a call saying, hey, we can help. That's great. So then what we do is we schedule you for one of our virtual clinic models. And those happen monthly, usually the first or second week of the month. And about the week before, we'll give you all of the paperwork. So we'll send it out to your home. It includes all of the documents that you need to give to the court. And then the final piece of that is we schedule a volunteer attorney. So we have a whole group of volunteer attorneys that we work with on a regular basis. And they're wonderful. They have educated themselves in the process with the courts, what those documents mean, and they actually give you a call to schedule a time to talk through all of those documents. So, now you've got them in your hands, but okay, like where do I need to sign? Do I need to sign versus do I need to go see a notary? Do I need to get this notarized? The answer is yes. So they talk you through all of that and then answer any questions you may have about process. Maybe you have convictions in two different courts. Do I need to be thinking about, Berea Court and Parma Court? What's the difference there? Where do I need to go? What do I need to do? So they can answer questions like that. And typically I find that, they're happy to talk, answer questions, and then send you on your way, hopefully feeling ready and prepared to go file with the court and do what you got to do to make sure that that gets sealed and that this can no longer be a burden for you.
Yeah, wow. It sounds pretty complicated. Is this something, like if I felt confident I could follow the steps, could I do this process myself without help from a legal expert?
Well, that's a great point. It's important to know that many of the courts, not all, but many of the courts are being very proactive about this very thing. And some of them have do-it-yourself kits where you can contact the court and they may have applications and different documents that you can fill out yourself and go ahead and provide. And that in many cases is perfectly adequate. That works.
Okay.
Of course, legal aid, we charge the same thing that the court does for their applications, which is nothing. So either way you want to go, you can go through us or go to the courts directly to see. I should mention that when you file an application to expunge or seal a record at a court, the courts may charge you. There's a court cost. Of course, always court costs. In this case, it's about $50.
Okay.
But if you are of low income, if you are a legal aid client, for example, and you're
Right.
eligible for legal aid services,
Right.
then we'll also provide a poverty affidavit, which should serve to waive that $50 fee. So again, I'm going to beat this drum as often as you let me. If you can seal or expunge a record, get it done.
Yeah.
It's don't wait. Because if you wait until you're between jobs and then you start applying for a job, well, now you've got to go through the process, and it's going to take several months
Okay.
to get this done. So if you have a record and you think you you can get that sealed or expunged, go ahead and do it. At the most, it's going to cost you $50 ish, and hopefully nothing at all.
Yeah. Wow. And so, I asked that question, can we do this ourselves? Because all of us may not qualify to get help from legal aid, but it sounds like, it's as complicated as filling out a form and providing the documents, just as we would for anything else that, needed, you need to meet some criteria, like a loan or something. Anyhow, okay, so Jerry and Izzy are here with us. We're talking about the changes to Ohio's expungement law and what that means for you, how legal aid can help you out in that arena. The number to call is 888-817-3777, 888-817-3777. Go to their website at lasclev.org. So let's talk about some of the challenges that come with this process, or that people may face in trying to walk this journey of getting their record sealed or expunged.
Okay. I'm happy to talk about that because I've probably had, I'm sure I've had hundreds of clients who've prepared maybe over 1,000 applications.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that some of the challenges I face are, there's a list. First, someone may come looking to seal or expunge their records, and then they don't tell me that, they have an ongoing criminal case in one of the courts. Well, that doesn't fly. You can't do that. I mean, the courts, one of the things the courts have to do is the courts have to determine that you have no case currently pending.
Okay.
That could be a traffic case. It could be a criminal case. No cases pending. And they have to determine that you have been rehabilitated to the satisfaction of the court. And obviously, if you have a case pending, even though you haven't been found guilty, if you still have a case pending, the courts are going to want to wait till that case is done, and before you can file. So that's one. I have to explain that to people. Because sometimes they don't tell me, and I find out the hard way. Other things include the almost compelling need for some of the clients that I talk to want to relitigate the case. They want to tell me what happened in the case and how it was all wrong, and how things didn't go the way they wanted. They weren't satisfied with their public defender, or whatever the case may be. But the facts and circumstances, to me, I mean, for the purposes of expungement, they don't matter.
Yeah,
they just don't
none
matter.
of that matters at this point.
No,
Yeah.
you have the conviction or
Right.
you don't. So if
Right.
you have the conviction, then that's it. And this typically comes up in the case of an offense that is prohibited, that can't be sealed,
Right.
like one that's
Okay.
a violent felony.
Yeah.
Violent felonies cannot be sealed or expunged. They'll want to explain to me how it wasn't violent. It was just a simple matter of maybe a push and shove. Again, it doesn't matter. It's just the nature of the offense that you were convicted of.
Right.
The other thing is people will come in with convictions in Indiana or West
Okay.
Virginia, and we're only talking about the Ohio law. The Ohio courts can only seal or expunge Ohio records. It may be that those other states have their own laws, but for that you'll have to contact the equivalent of legal aid or contact an attorney over in those other jurisdictions, those other states, to see what their particular laws are. And maybe the most difficult issue that I face are people who come in with records they want to expunge that can't be, and that's all they have. And those cases, in a heartbreaking way, are just tying their lives down. But there's nothing I can do for them as far
Right.
as expunging their record. There's another thing they can do.
Okay.
For those individuals who can't seal or expunge their records, there's a thing in law, Ohio law, called a Certificate of Qualification for Employment, a CQE. Now, a CQE, the Certificate of Qualification for Employment, is a document or a judgment rendered by the Court of Common Pleas, the county court. There's only one in each court, one in each county. That court will hear the case and determine if this person should get a certificate of qualification for employment, even though they have a disqualifying conviction. But with this CQE, that CQE will lift the bar against giving that person an Ohio license in many cases.
Okay.
It also guarantees to a prospective employer that they won't be sued for negligent hiring practices. In other words, that employer may know that they have the conviction, but because they also have a document from the court saying that they are qualified for employment, they're protected. So it is definitely to their advantage. And other employers may want to see that too. It shows several things. It shows that a court has trust in you. And it's also that protection that helps them. And also it shows them that you care enough about your future life that you went through the process. It's a lengthy process of getting that done. Now, legal aid also does that, and you can apply for aid with the CQE. And we'll always automatically refer you if you can't get your record expunged for a CQE. But legal aid does that as well.
Wow. That's, how many people know about that?
Hopefully more today than yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. So make sure you write that down. Certificate of Qualification for Employment, or CQE. That can help you, or it will help you, in situations where you have to get a background check and you have things on your record that do not qualify to be sealed or expunged. That will go a long way, in the eyes of many. You are now become a trusted individual because this is something that's issued by the court. So with that, we are going to take a break. Remember the number to call. Listen, if you need help with expungement or sealing, you have any questions about any civil legal matters, anything that affects your life in a legal way that doesn't have to do with your criminal record, except sealing and expungement. I know that can be confusing, but anyway, call them anyway. 888-817-3777, 888-817-3777. Go through the intake process. Legal aid will tell you whether or not they can help you, and if they can't, they will give you information on options that are available. So let's take a break. This is a conversation about your rights, life and the law with Legal Aid Society of Cleveland on Our Voices Today, every third Thursday on 95.9 FM WOVU. We'll be right back.
Stand up, my people. How will we ever know?
Do you rent your home? Do you have questions about your rights and responsibilities as a tenant? Call the Legal Aid Society's Tenant Information Line at 216-861-5955 anytime. State your name, phone number, and a brief description of your housing question. A legal aid housing specialist will return your call within 2 business days between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. Again, that number is 216-861-5955. Call the Legal Aid Tenant Information Line at 216-861-5955. Any day, anytime.
This message is brought to you by the Legal Aid Society and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Card community radio station.
Getting connected to the internet opens up countless opportunities. Take classes online, start your own new business, Stay in touch with your loved one. When you're connected, the possibilities are endless. The Digital Navigators are here to help you get started. They'll help you find the plans and devices that fit your budget and even connect you to free training and support. Call the Digital Navigators today, 216-307-6990. This message was brought to you by the Digital Navigators and WOVU 95.9 FM and Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
It's time to make the short story longer. Yeah.
Welcome back. This is Our Voices Today on 95.9 FM WOVU. Our Voices United. It's we're having a conversation, just chatting it up with our friends from Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. Jerry Meter is here with us, just a wonderful volunteer. How do we become volunteers? I know, a small tangent. Izzy McLean is also here with us. She's a part of the gang. But how do we, Izzy, maybe that's a good question for you. How does one become a Legal Aid Society of Cleveland volunteer?
So if you visit our website, we have a whole volunteer tab that gives some great information about what opportunities we have. So we have a lot of opportunities for any law students out there who are listening, any attorneys who are interested in doing work with us. We have a lot of great opportunities that range from, I would say, like fairly low commitment to something a lot more substantial, like a little bit more like what Jerry does. He does so much incredible work for us. And then we also have, you're always welcome to inquire if you're an interested community member. We have a form that you can fill out, and one of my colleagues can give you some further information about our non-volunteer attorney opportunities. So
Yeah, awesome.
I would say if you're interested, feel free to fill out that form so we can start a conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for that information. So go to the website, lasclev.org for those details. So we, left before the last break talking about the process that it takes to, file the paperwork, get the expungement or sealing process going. What happens after all that is done?
Well, okay, so let me stress that when you come to legal aid for help with criminal expungement, criminal record expungement, we are preparing the documents and giving you advice for you to act what's called pro se, which means by yourself. We do not go into court with you. Okay, it's important to know.
Okay.
And we don't go into court with you because the process is such that it's so straightforward that we generally don't find that there's any need for us to go into court with you. Most of our clients are perfectly capable of doing it themselves. We certainly encourage people to go into the court dressed appropriately and with the proper attitude, because one way to really mess your chances up is to not do that.
Right.
But you go into the court pro se, and by and large, well over 90% of the cases, your application is granted. But if that doesn't happen, if the prosecutor comes forward and says, "No, I object to this, application," for whatever these reasons are, then a legal aid client is told to contact us immediately, and we will review the objection to see if the prosecutor is correct. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not, especially when the law changes. Sometimes they operate under that old law, and they don't understand, so we have to go in and educate them, which we're happy to do. And if necessary, if we just have an honest disagreement, we will actually then come in limited cases and actually represent you. I've done this in many cases, gone into the courts, the local municipal courts primarily, and just argue the case. And we've had pretty good results with that. So the bottom line is, when you get the documents and you file them, you're kind of on your own unless a problem arises, and then we got your back. But here's the thing: you're going to have to go into court, right? I think I mentioned that. So there's going to be a court date set, and you have to go. And even if the judge grants your application to expunge your record, it's not going to happen the next day. So if you're applying for a job and you find out that they've got some record of your conviction, that's because you just didn't wait long enough. And I wish I could tell you that, in exactly 6 weeks, it's all going to be fixed. But it just depends on the court.
Right.
It usually takes a couple of months, sometimes a little longer, for that to filter all the way through the court system up to the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation and Information, BCI.
Yep.
That's the ones who publish
Right.
those background checks. So,
And these are all people operating these systems.
Yes.
So, you know how long people take.
yes, so it does take a little time. There is a court appearance going to be required. You're going to be going pro se.
Yeah.
And just be patient, grind through it, and you will succeed.
Right.
Chances are.
Yes. So you should wait for that official documentation notification that this process has completed and it's now official before you take actions, where this whole process was important to get you
that's
a foot in the door.
Well, that's true. I mean, once the judge, you'll get an order. Once the judge signs the order, they'll send you a copy. You'll get notified. But then you still have to wait because there's bureaucracy. And just because the court signed the document, he or she has got to filter that document up through channels. It's got to go all the way to Columbus, Ohio, to BCI. And that just takes time.
Okay. So then at that point, after you get the court order, you just have to monitor whatever website or make the appropriate phone call to find out, is this, has this been done or recorded?
It's best if you just give it a couple, 3 months. You're just safer, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, even so, what's 3 months? What's even a year or even 2 years when it comes to taking care of something that's been a hindrance in your life, having something on your criminal record? And since the Ohio law for expungement has changed, all people are now eligible. You no longer have to prove that you qualify for expungement or sealing. And, a lot of things are that we may not even think about, especially I think the last time we talked about expungement, our two friends mentioned childhood convictions, juvenile convictions. You guys are giving me a look.
No, but that's a great question.
Oh, okay.
Jerry, can you seal or expunge juvenile convictions?
Well, my understanding is that so first of all, I don't deal with juvenile convictions. My understanding is that juvenile convictions aren't public record anyway. So sealing or expunging those is not in the purview of the law that was changed.
Okay.
And I'm not an expert on that. I don't want to speak out of turn. But as far as I know, those are already not open to the public.
Okay. Well, I will just say that it was the week before reentry week. I believe Jen was here. Forgive me for not remembering her last name, but they talked about people thinking what you just said, that juvenile convictions, nobody can see them after you turn 18. But I believe Jen told us that they can, and that's something that we need to think about when we're talking about expungement. But we can have, let's have another conversation just to clear it all up. But in the meantime, call Legal Aid. They can tell you for sure, because like you said, Jerry, this is not an area that you're an expert in. Did you want to say something real quick?
Not about that. I have just another point.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so it's important that I give a shout out
Yeah.
to our partners, the Public Defender's Office.
Okay.
The Public Defender's Office, they are amazing. I mean, they do incredible work. They help defend people on those charges of guilt or innocence. What we don't do, they do that criminal side of the law. We do the civil side. But in this one area, in expungements that are for records that are held at the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas.
Okay.
The public defender, the Cuyahoga County Public Defender, does the record expungement and sealing for those cases. So if you have a conviction at the county court, Mostly they're going to be felony convictions, but not always. The county court, they deal with those felony cases, but sometimes they're pled down to misdemeanors. Regardless of what the level of the offense is, the public defender is the one to go to if you have a case at the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas.
Okay. So if we have a conviction that was rendered in the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas, we should seek help from the public defender. The
Yes,
county
exactly.
Public Defender's Office.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. The Cuyahoga County Public Defender's Office. Okay. All right. So, is there anything that we have missed in our conversation today about expungement, sealing, anything that you want to make sure we know or remember?
I would say, I know we covered so much information today.
Yeah.
But really, I can't stress enough, if it's something that you're interested in, don't wait. I think one of the biggest takeaways is that this is a process that takes time. And if you're worried about it, if you think that you're eligible, give us a call. See, go on our website, schedule an appointment, or call into our intake line and talk through it, because we're always happy to help if it's something that you're eligible. And if you're not, we can tell you why.
Right.
Or tell you, okay, you're not eligible now, but in 6 months, give us a call back. You'll be eligible then, and then we'll be happy to help. Or, other resources, if, like Jerry mentioned, maybe you do need to go to the public defender, we're happy to talk through that as well. So I know it's a lot of information, but I think the biggest takeaway is don't hesitate and give us a call and see if it's something that we can help you with.
Yeah. And Izzy, when you say eligible, you mean eligible for legal aid services.
Right.
Not because
Okay.
you don't have to be eligible to individually
Yes.
eligible
A good
to seal
point.
your record.
Thank you,
Right.
Jerry.
Yes. Awesome. Yes. So can we address this issue at the next brief advice clinic?
Well, there is one coming up on Saturday, like TC said, at Fatima. So I would say yes. We address so many different things at brief advice clinics that if that's a question you have, we're happy to talk through it. I think for this particular thing, knowing how much work we do with it in-house, I would almost say call intake.
Okay. Just call.
Intake. Because, brief advice clinics, we really try and have you walk out with, the thing you need to go forward. And expungement is one of those things where, we'd have to draft the documents and look at the eligibility for the records. If it's really expungement that you're looking for, I would say call intake first.
Okay.
But I would never discourage anyone truly from coming to a brief advice clinic. I think they're so helpful and wonderful resources for folks in the community to come out and talk through issues and talk through matters and try and get some advice.
Well, thank you again, Izzy McLean and Jerry Meter, for joining us today in this conversation about our rights, life, and the law with Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. That number to call for the intake line, 888-817-3777, 888-817-3777, or you can go on the website to get in touch, lasclev.org. Thank you for the millionth time, because this is so helpful. Unless we know to go to legal aid, people are flipping through the radio station, or they're listening, they hear Jay, and then they catch this show, or they tune in for this show, particularly on WOVU. This may spark, a whole life change in someone. Just hearing this information, maybe we didn't catch it all, but we hopefully caught that number that I said 8,000 times. 888-817-3777. It's just, I love sharing information, and thank you for the work that y'all be doing.
Thank you, TC. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us and letting us share.
Yep.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So that'll do it for us. This has been Our Voices Today on 95.9 FM. Thank you so much. Have a great time.